Hi, everybody. We are soon starting episode 8 of our series with Stephanie Barnes, How to Thrive as a Human in an AI World. This time it's a recording. I'm here live, and we are watching together a recording of our discussion. And and of course, I will be here like answering your questions and comments. And yeah, so it's partly live. It's hybrid, I would say. And sorry about the disturbance. This is why I started a minute early to adjust so that there's no glitches. Okay, so we are ready. Welcome. And it's episode 8 of the series of discussions with Stephanie Barnes and Simo Routarinne, How to Thrive as a Human in an AI World. And today's theme is thriving versus surviving. Those words are so great. And let's see what we discussed.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. This is episode 8 of our podcast ish series of how to thrive as a human in an AI world. Excuse me. We're going to talk about thriving versus surviving this week, and maybe picking up a little bit from where we left off last week when we had our guest with us, Philip Horvath. So, as always, please put your comments and questions in the chat, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook. So just know too, StreamYard doesn't let us. It shows us the LinkedIn comments. It doesn't let us post our comments back to LinkedIn. So we will do our best to acknowledge them and incorporate them. And actually, this time, because we're recording this, Simo is going to do it.
Yes, I will be able to actually to respond your comments. At least I hope so. And because this is a recording and I'm
Yeah.
live somewhere around here.
Yes. Yes.
You
Yes.
see me waving there. Okay. So Simo, wave. Um, how schizo can you get? Um, Thrive or survive. I hear a TV show here.
Yes. Yes.
So if you imagine, um, dear listener or watcher, that there would be a TV show, Thrive or Survive, what could happen in such a TV show? I'm waiting for your ideas and answers. We are not probably, well, promises, hope not going to do a TV show, but it so sounds like a TV show.
Yeah.
Thrive.
Well, isn't that what's that? I don't watch reality TV. What's that? But something about an island. Is it called Survivor?
There is one, yeah, Survivors or so. We are so bad with this
somebody,
genre.
somebody will put it in. Somebody will put it in the chat. But yeah, back to our, in the age of AI, it seems to me that a lot of people are looking at just surviving, because they're looking at it as a competition with the AI.
Yeah,
The AI is going to take their job, and so their question is, how am I going to survive? In that kind of situation where AI is taking over all of these jobs, especially knowledge worker jobs.
mm,
Um, so and so, but the question needs to be not how do I survive, but how do I thrive in
yeah,
that situation? Because surviving just sounds so. depressing and
Mhm.
difficult, and
Well,
draining of energy, whereas thriving is like, excellent, what am I going to do today?
mm. And also, I think surviving might look like using AI to get good grades. I mean, using AI like a survival tool for I don't have in me to do the studying and the essays and blah, blah, blah. So let's AI do the dirty work. And I think that's surviving. That's not thriving.
No, I think thriving is much more about using AI where it makes sense to use AI, but it's also about being more human, building out the things that we can't
Yeah.
that we can do that the technology can't do. The honest emotional stuff, the connection, the creativity, the real creativity, the real innovation. Um,
Yeah.
this putting pieces together in different ways, and adding pieces maybe that haven't existed before, creating them that haven't existed before, doing that kind of thing. It was interesting. I had a conversation recently with someone who works in IT and has a senior position in IT, and he's like, the we need to focus on the human,
Yeah.
the humanity, the human skills. You're never going to compete with the technology. The technology is always going to beat us. So, we need to focus on the things that the technology doesn't do. And he thinks the liberal studies, the like liberal arts and those social studies and those kinds of things, activities, are going to be much more important
Yeah.
now and in the future,
Yeah.
and he said, because of his role, he has access to some data or watches some data and says like the enrollment in computer science and math and science is actually down, in the last couple of years, um, and enrollment in these other liberal arts and arts is going up. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah. And I keep remembering where we ended with Philip, our guest, in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like taking care of yourself. Like
Yes.
to build a healthy relationship with AI, we should build a healthy relationship first with ourselves and either survive or thrive. I think that's totally connected.
Yeah.
And there was this one word that's stuck in my mind now. It's like meaningfulness or meaningful stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
how could our relationship with AI to help us do more meaningful stuff, more stuff that really is aligned with our values or fulfills our passions. And that would be thriving.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's a meme that I see once in a while, and I've seen, yeah, probably for the last year. It's about someone saying that they want AI to do the dishes and do the house cleaning,
Mm,
the grocery shopping, that kind of stuff. Not write poetry, not write stories, not
mm,
you know make images that get called art. Give me AI that does the stuff that I don't enjoy doing, and leave the creative, innovative, interesting, relational stuff, um, to the humans.
I might try to use AI with poetry to, to not that write me a poem, but it's like help me with rhyming couplets, to give me some options, or help me with synonyms, like what other words are, give me a word cloud of words that are, connected with gardening, or that would
Yeah, I think
help
that's a
me.
reasonable use. It's
Yeah.
interesting that we're talking about poetry. A couple of years ago now, yeah, probably 2023, there was a book. There's a poet. I have a number of his books. I'm not going to say names because I'm terrible with names and I can't remember off the top of my head. But I have a number of his books of poetry, and he published a book of poems that was written in his style. He'd given the AI his his previous work, and told it or asked it to create poems in his style. And and like I say, I have a number of his books already at the time, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and I like his stuff, and so I looked at like the preview, right, the sample before you buy. I'm like, no, there's something wrong with this.
Ooh.
There's not. Yeah, it's his style, but there's something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And then I went and read about the book, so I didn't realize when I looked at the preview of the book that it was generated by AI. It
Mm.
was after I'd read the sample. I'm going, there's something wrong with this. That I went and read a little bit more about the book, and found that was all
Mm.
AI generated, and I'm like, yep, nope, not doing it. So I didn't buy it.
Somebody, I'm bad with names too. So somebody wrote in the social media about AI that I think it was well put. I can't remember it like word by word, but it was something about that AI doesn't actually know the meaning of the words.
No,
It
no,
just
it doesn't.
knows the relations between words, like what
Yeah,
goes with rabbit, well, carrot, or but it doesn't actually know what rabbit means or carrot means, but it knows that what words are usually connecting. So I think
yeah,
that's interesting with the meaningful part,
yeah,
that still it's for us humans to be aware of the meaning
yep,
of words
yes,
and sentences and
yes,
stuff.
yes, yes. And this is why it's important to understand the meaning of words, and to use them
Because it's
appropriately.
not, so if you just swallow everything AI gives to you, yeah, you could say, you could continue, then it's meaningless.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, and I saw another article last night that was saying there's too much AI generated content on the internet.
Yeah.
It's already limiting what can be used to train the models, the large language models. I know that because when it ingests its own content, it collapses, right? So
It's
um,
like I'm now imagining of eating food that's mimicked.
yeah,
That always everything you eat is not the real stuff, but kind of a artificially, like a look-alike, taste alike.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can't exist on a capsule that's got all the daily vitamins and minerals that
Mm,
that you need. You
yeah.
know,
You know,
it's
take it. Let's take steak capsule first, and then the strawberry cake capsule.
yeah,
Like,
and
space, in science fiction, they did that like
yeah,
60 years ago.
yeah, yeah. It's like, but what about the enjoyment of cutting the piece of meat or cutting the vegetables, the taste of the butter on the vegetables, and Yeah, the
That
sauce,
is actually a very good metaphor. Like the food stuff, like
Yeah,
language or
yeah,
food for
yeah.
soul.
Yes,
Mm.
yes, yes. The smell of coffee in the
Yeah.
morning. I know.
And that's exactly what we were earlier in some episode we were talking about the recruiter who actually got tired to read, you know,
Oh, yeah. All the resumes that
the
are the same.
applications or resumes made by AI. It's like,
Yeah,
who is this person? Like,
yeah,
where's the flavors? Where are the smells of a real person?
yeah, yeah, yeah. A real person isn't perfect. They're perfectly imperfect,
I'm
right?
not stuck with smells of of real.
Oh yeah, I was on the subway yesterday in Toronto. Definitely know about smells. But it's, you know, that's life. Life is not perfect,
It's
nor is
smelly.
it meant to be. Yeah, it's smelly, it's imperfect. It's perfect. I like to say it's perfectly imperfect. You
Yeah.
know, that's what, that's how we learn. That's how
Yeah.
we create bonds and relationships, and
Yeah.
not this clinical hyper perfect transactional system that
Mm.
seems to be so many people's perfect world. It's like, well,
Mhm.
well, like we were talking about with Philip last week, the you have to have the good with the bad to recognize,
Mm.
the yin and the yang, the masculine,
Yeah.
the feminine, the however you want
Yeah.
to look at the black and the white.
And we need failure
Absolutely.
because it's like, yeah, once again, Keith Johnstone, my improv guru, has a or had, may he rest in peace, an example of what if you can't fail? What if you succeed every time you do something, you just succeed? How would your life look like? Like God playing golf, hole in one, hole in one, hole in one. Like whatever you do, it's always hole in one. Like, wouldn't
Yeah.
it be like feeling more like a hell than heaven?
I think so. It would
If
for
you,
me. Well, sorry, and it's interesting, the hole in one is that's the idea of perfection, right? Hole
it,
in one. Well, who says?
that too. Of course, there's a question, but that's an easy example of you can't fail.
Sure.
It's like,
Sure.
does it make you thrive? I don't think so.
No. No,
So,
how is that
success,
thriving?
actually, if we think of success, that's a pervert word in that sense, because it doesn't actually mean that you are thriving necessarily.
Mm, doesn't it?
I don't know.
I I agree they have different
Who
meanings.
says what's the measure of success?
I think success looks different than, I think there's sort of traditional measures of success like
Yeah, and
job titles
cultural.
and cultural, yeah, job titles and bank account balances, and you know how big your house is, certainly in North American terms,
Yeah.
that those kind of
Yeah.
material things,
Yeah.
but that's that's only one kind of success, you know
Exactly.
like
And I'm so interested of this surviving or thriving theme because it's like, and also the success, the term success, being a successful human being. To me, it's a possible combination that you are really successful in other people's eyes, but you don't feel that you are thriving.
yeah,
I think that's a possible and a common combination, maybe.
yeah,
So
yeah,
they are, in my mind, they are different things.
yeah,
Success is more like connected with wealth, money, something like that, and
mm,
in and and thriving is more holistic, like
Oh, okay.
thriving as a human being.
Yeah.
But hey, words are like that. They mean
Yeah.
things for
Well,
people.
and I think what you said about success being sort of financial and material, I think that that's certainly true. At least that's been the traditionally.
Mm,
But I think that we can create our own definitions of success.
yes.
And it's important to have a more holistic version and not to get overly focused on the money, and on the title and that.
Yeah.
There are, because there's other things that are important. Helping
Yeah.
other people, helping
Yeah.
other people thrive, helping,
Hmm.
the servant leadership stuff that gets talked
Yeah.
about sometimes, that creating the psychological safety,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
facilitative skills,
And
those.
it seems like the young people of today are more into those softer values that were in our generation. It was like more than money and material things and in general.
Yeah.
But I think I've heard that the young generation are not maybe going, not all of them, of course, are the same, but there are many people that are not going for the money, but for good leadership or, kind of like nice coworkers and good culture
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
meaningful work.
Yes. 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 Having oh, there's a word that's not coming to me. Having a purpose, you know and I know that's something Philip talks about, is purpose.
Yeah.
So we'll have to have him on again sometime.
But I would
But
really love to hear. So if you're listening or watching this, please write into the comments what surviving means to you in connection with AI or not. But what is that word mean to you in the modern context? Like
uh,
what's the difference between surviving and thriving? Because I think that these are key words maybe if we want to build a healthy relationship with AI. I think
yeah,
it's I think it's I have this hunch, this intuition that it's not what we do with AI, but it's the attitude, kind of the relation with the AI.
yeah,
Are we using it for us thriving and us helping other people to thrive or survive in the competition and be, I, I think so. I don't
yeah,
know. I don't know if it's true, but it feels
yeah.
right.
Yeah, to me, surviving is about just staying alive, you
Yeah.
know, at a very basic level, being able to be someplace safe, someplace warm and dry,
Well, those are the
um,
basic needs, yes.
those
But
kind of
but
basic.
to me, surviving is also like doing the minimum stuff to get a certificate. You
Yeah, yeah,
getting over your studies to, get graduated, with the less work that, you know, without doing much.
yeah, yeah.
That's
That just sort of
surviving.
getting through. We used to say, getting through by the skin of your teeth, right?
Ah,
Like this,
mm,
that I don't know if that translates well into other languages, but um, and it's actually not something I've heard lately. So maybe it's gone out of. Maybe I'm showing my age again,
um,
but yeah. Whereas thriving is more joyful, is
yeah.
more purposeful, is.
Well, you might, of course you do have a saying of like joy of learning.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you survive school, you are just you know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I'm just surviving. And the opposite is like if you genuinely experience joy of learning, that would be thriving.
Yes. 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 And I think our schools have become much more about surviving,
Yeah,
passing the tests,
sadly so.
rather
Sadly so.
than really enjoying learning, enjoying the
And
experience.
and that surviving attitude like invites you to use AI in a certain
Mm,
sense, like
mhm.
to be able to just, pass through
In a
with
certain
something.
way. It
And kind of
envisions.
like cheating is also part of that.
Yeah. Well, and this is cheating. I have used AI a little bit lately, and it feels like I'm cheating.
Yeah.
I think I might have said this in episodes previously. Like it feels like I'm cheating myself out of really learning how to do this. Doing the proper research, spending the time, and really thinking and reflecting and going, no, this is what makes sense, and this is forming a thought.
Yeah.
Taking the bits of information and synthesizing it and creating my own
Yeah.
opinion out of it. Instead, I've thrown some words in an AI model and said, give me something
Yeah.
that meets these parameters, and I read and go, yeah, good enough.
I have to admit that I had an experience with AI. I was like, I've written a couple of books of applying improvisation in organizations, and I tried AI to how would it look like translated because they are my books are not translated in English
Mm.
because I'm procrastinating just so much.
It's just
So
not the right time.
yeah, so I I used AI to do a sample translation of the other book, the first book,
Yeah.
and it was okay. It looked good and it went fast, and that was okay. But then I experimented with, please write it again in English, like in Malcolm Gladwell style,
Ah.
and that scared the shit out of me because it looked so smooth. It was so, oh my God, who has written this? And then I felt like cheating reading that. Like, oh my God, I
Yeah.
couldn't ever use that kind of language. Like, because
Yeah.
the English is not my native language. So
Yeah.
why would I? And
Yeah.
and maybe I'm still stuck with that. I tried that like last fall, and
Oh,
it's like over 6 months, like 9 months from that, and I'm stuck because it's like I don't know what to do because I would love to use AI to do a great translation, and one of the ideas I had that maybe if I read every sentence and just delete the sentences that I don't understand, then I would say that, it's my book. But it's really difficult to, I, I'm stuck with that. I'm stuck.
yeah. 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 If it was me, I would be inclined to take the original and translate it into English. Um, you know,
And kind of save
and
my own voice,
yeah, and save
even
your
though it
own.
would be clumsy or sound like
Yeah.
a non-native speaker.
What I've done, I this was before the pandemic. I worked with some folks in Germany that had published a book in German that I wanted them to publish in English because I felt that there was a
Mm.
need. I still wish that it had gotten out further in the English market, but um, and I helped them with the translation, even though my German was not at that time, nor is it now, very good. But I could use Google Translate or deep. I think I was using Google Translate at that point, and I would take sentences and translate it, and then look at it in English and go, no, that's not exactly what you would say,
Yeah.
and then I would edit it, and then we would go back and forth because they did speak the authors spoke English
Well,
and were fluent in English, but didn't necessarily know all the
Idiomatic.
nuances.
Yeah.
The way that
Yeah.
you know, so then we get into discussions about what a word means in German, and when it's not translated it well into to English, and we have those discussions. And I think that that's, you know, that basic use of AI, and I don't know that it was AI in that. Well, it probably
Well,
was.
Google Translator was kind of like a baby version of
Yeah,
Deep.
yeah,
You know, the DeepL you mentioned.
yeah,
DeepL is, I've heard it's so much better,
yeah. It is.
and of course we use like native speakers to read the text and to, you know, check it
Yeah, yeah, and I
like
think that's
earlier
a
on in the
yeah.
old
Well,
days.
when I think it still is a valid
Yeah.
thing even now, even though these models have gotten much better at translation. I think there's still value in having a native speaker read it and edit it and go, is this really what you meant here? Or this
Yeah.
doesn't, these words together don't mean what I think you want to say here.
Yeah.
You know, and having those discussions, you know,
Yeah.
and understanding the nuance. So
And that,
again, back to kind of not just blindly accepting what AI spews out at us, but having the critical eye,
and
you know, critical
also not,
thinking.
maybe not even blindly accepting, but if you are not a native speaker, you can't have that discussion of the meaning, the deeper meaning, or the smell of these two words together.
Yeah,
That's kind of, yeah. Hmm.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And but I think if we're going to thrive, then we're going to have to get into that nuance, that those subtleties of
yeah.
what does this really mean? You know, is that really what you meant? And
Of
not just
course, AI could make that whole work faster. I mean, help. I I don't mean like replacing the human connection and the discussion, but like using AI and then having the discussion would maybe make it faster.
yeah, yeah,
But why does everything need to be so fast? It's all about money and time, time and money. Time is money, and
yeah,
and who's to say that that's? I mean, I'm kind of tired of. I just had a experience with Finnish healthcare because I
mm-hmm.
now live in a small city. I moved from a big city to a really, really small one.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to a doctor and like twice, and both times, like recently, really recently, they had time.
Mm.
In big cities, they don't. And the last time I went to a doctor here was like I went for one thing to get help with one thing. Then she said that you're an entrepreneur. What about like, you know, blood tests? When have you done it recently? I said 3 years ago. Well, since you are an entrepreneur, what about doing it now again? And I
Mm.
would say, "Oh, thank you so much." And I was like, "Oh my God, thank you." And after that, she said, "Is there anything else?" And I was like, "Nobody asks that."
No.
And then I said, "Well, I have this, you know, rash here, and this is not connected with the other one. Can I still bring this up?" And yes, sure, of course. And then we took care of that too. And I was like, "Where I mean, and that was for me, that was the most valuable visit with the doctor ever in my life.
Yeah,
For God's
yeah,
sake, I'm over 60. So, I mean, so
yeah,
just to say that we have to be efficient and, you know, let's get rid of the patient in, you know, 10 minutes so you can have more patients. And that's like being a good professional.
yeah, yeah,
It's money that talks in not the thriving as a human.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and this is why, before I moved to Berlin, I used to go, I had a naturopath that I went to in Toronto, and I would see her, I don't know, once a month, sometimes more often, sometimes less often. But the appointments were an hour and a half
Yeah.
because we're talking. She wants to know what's going on, how my stress levels are, all of that kind of stuff. And then she would do some acupuncture, some kind of physical treatment, and that would take an hour and a half. Whereas go to the regular doctor, the Western doctor, and it's like, if you take longer than 5 minutes, that's you've got to go. Oh, you haven't covered everything that you came for. Too bad. Make another appointment.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the reality.
And I had the same experience in Germany with a doctor. There it was like, oh no, your time's up. You got to go. If there's more stuff, then you'll have to make another appointment.
Yes.
Okay, I'm here now. Couldn't we? No, you can't do that now. You only have 5 minutes or 10 minutes now. No, we can't do that. So
that sounds like surviving.
It does. And the naturopath was very much about thriving because she looked at the whole system. She looked at me as a whole person, not as a rash on my cheek.
I like these words, better and better all the time.
Yeah. And I find I'm talking a lot about relational versus transactional. And I think that there's a parallel there with surviving being the transaction and thriving being the relationship.
That sounds sad, living in a Western culture with, big money talking.
Very transactional.
And we don't mention the name, but we know who.
Okay. Yes, I know who you mean, but yeah, and this is sad. That's not a world I want to live in, governed by transactions, governed by data. The innovation, the creativity comes out of the relationship comes out of the space in between the numbers.
Yeah, it seems like many Western cultures are all about competition and kind of like surviving as an individual in that competition.
Yeah.
Like, don't be a loser, be a successful person.
Yeah.
And
this is our definition of success.
Yeah, so that's why I think it's different than thriving.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think so. For sure. So
I'm kind of almost speechless.
Well, maybe I'm not sure how long we've been recording this, but maybe it's time
I think
to wrap up.
I think it's time to wrap it up.
So yes, and I will be back live next week on July 1st on Canada Day. I get up and do this on Canada Day live with Simo, and we'll figure out what we're going to talk about then.
And we are continuing to do this during July on every Tuesday at the same time. And in August, we are going to have a break and then continue in September.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the plan.
Yep. So you can, continue to watch us for another few weeks, and then we'll take a break.
So. I think I'm going to ask myself after this episode, I'm going to stop once in a while and ask myself, am I now surviving or thriving?
Yeah.
I'm challenging you. I'm daring you to do that too.
I have my my little journal and my crayons here, so maybe I'll do that, as a prompt. Am I thriving or am I surviving today?
And is it the choice?
Let's pick up from. Let's pick that up next week.
Yes.
So we'll do part 2 of surviving versus thriving after we've both spent the week,
experimenting
and journaling and reflecting on what does it mean to survive versus thrive in an AI world. And we invite you to do the same.
Yes.
And join us on the 1st of July and we'll see what everybody's conclusion is.
Oh,
there you go. You got
time is July.
Got some homework.
Okay. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Yep. Bye.
Okie dokie. So this is it, episode 8, Thriving versus Surviving. See you next week, and yeah, please be mindful for this week of what are the moments of thriving and what are the moments of surviving in your life, and come back, report to us next week. Bye.